Thank you, Father and young men, and thank you to the church here for today's service. Very much about the ritual, very much about the traditions, but the real reason for funerals is to keep us all busy the week before. And everybody stepped up in the household, and it sort of reminded me of how each did it. As Giovanna had her disease, Joanna, the doctor, can't tell you how many times she was on the phone about things. Jaman, the researcher, and then also the great shopper. She'd talk to her mom about something the next morning. It would be on the porch. Janessa and then Sage, who ran the gallery, and Giovanna had such confidence in things that after she got her diagnosis, she bought a frame shop, and Sage managed that, and then the two of them put it together with a big gallery, and Sage is still managing that. And Gabe turned the kitchen into the cancer-free kitchen. And then the three of them locally cooked all the time. Jaman and Joanna came down whenever they could. My two kids stepped up. Can't tell you how many times I called Selena for either reassurance or an understanding of what was going on medically. Carlos and I had a few dinners together, and it always lifted my spirits. So great thanks to all seven of you. The Mass, I really think of in three parts. The Word that we started with. Well, the Word and Giovanna. This is one of the great insights of the faith is that the Word is made flesh and dwells among us. And wherever two or three are gathered together, God is present. Well, that was also Giovanna's great belief that communication was really the way God expressed Godness in all of us and in the world, and she did it all the time. And then the offertory, where we bring our gifts and we bring ourselves and we make our promise. Father mentioned the word purposeful. This is a religion of works, and Giovanna brought that offertory every day. This is what I'm working on. The Italian word progetti, the projects, always had them, and was lamenting to her daughter, one of her daughters late in her life, that I can't get as many things done. And this notion that you work and that's what you're here for. And it leads to sort of her philosophy, which I'll mention. And then we conclude with the communion. And, my goodness, that communion, again, communication. So the Mass very much embodies those things that she cared so much about. There were three places that she loved most in the world. The family home in Italy, when she said that whenever she got there, she was home, she could breathe. It just, the breath was different. Her gallery, where she could bring talent and bring expression and bring art into people's world. She bonded with people over those works of art. She bonded with the artists. It was an essential part of how to build communion, how to build community. We kidded her that what she really wanted to do was buy a restaurant, because she'd have these receptions at the gallery that you couldn't get to the art past the food. But it was just part of her seeing those essential pieces together, that art isn't just an individual thing, but a communion. And if you don't already have a piece of art that reminds you of her, pick one in your house that does, and when you see it, think of her, or the next time you get some piece of art, get it in her memory, so you'll see that, you'll have that touchstone there, right there in your life, of how art can inspire us and lift us up and move us on. And then the third place she loved was her garden. Her garden, every plant in that garden, she planted. And every berm, every rise, every bit of the creek, Roger built, wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow. It was a flat swamp when they got that house with no growth. And they turned it into this place where people can either sit by themselves or have a celebration. And it was all their creation. And that garden suggests to me this notion I wanted to talk about. Her philosophy. She majored in philosophy in college, not because she wanted to read all these philosophers, but because she wanted to find a philosophy. And she decided on Stoicism. It has Italian roots, and it has this this importance of work. And picture a little grocery store in Grass Valley in 1949, and you open the door to go in, and you just want cigarettes or something you're out of, and you can't see anybody there, and you say, hello, is anyone there? And you hear a little voice, buongiorno, and a little 4 or 5-year-old comes out to wait on you from behind the counter. That's your friend Giovanna, working from the earliest days. And it's this notion, so the Italian roots and the purpose of work in the Stoicism, but the big thing was Stoicism's demand of self-control. That, again, purposefulness. Every encounter you have with someone, you're talking, you're gesturing, they see you. How are you appearing? What do you want to present to that person? What do you want to say? What do you want them to feel? And this sense of I need to control as much as I can control and make people feel comfortable and make them feel good. We don't want to be known, I don't think, by how we die. But Giovanna faced this disease with the same kind of stoic need to try to control. And we thank everyone at Kaiser, any of you who are from Kaiser, Joanna, of course, wonderful people, and we thank Dr. Zhang, who came from Beijing at least twice a year after she got her diagnosis to work with her with traditional Chinese medicine, and all those things helped her. But always that sense of, what can I be in control of here? What part of this pain can I get on top of? Can I redirect? Can I accept in a way that will get me past it? It just stood her in great stead her whole life. There are 3 charities that you may have noticed in the obituary. The animal rescue, this love of animals, the care about animals. The Village Project, which builds wells for people in villages, right now in Africa. But again, for people and the very basics. And then the Youth Scholarship Fund that the family is establishing. The youth development, that was her job at the Assembly for a while. Youth development back in Grass Valley when she was in high school. She wrote to the bishop and she said, we need a teen center. And when the bishop sort of ignored her, she wanted to kind of go to the battlements, and her parish priest said, well, you can kind of ease off a little bit. But she only eased off for 55 years, because it's back on the docket, this youth development fund. So Bishop, rest your soul. She may have the last word on that one. She had, of course, and now I'm being facetious, but 3 best friends, and it was you and 2 other people. She had her 3 favorite children and her 3 favorite siblings, and you also are here. You know who you are. But she had this ability to connect to people right away. There are tributes on Facebook from people's stories about the first time they met her and how quickly they felt like she was a really close friend and somebody they were so glad to know. And part of it was that intentionality, part of it was that focus of her philosophy, and I'm sure a lot of it was just born into her. I got a gift from her late in her life. She sort of walked me through her prayers. And her prayers were almost always quiet. And they took an hour or so, maybe longer. By the way, how do you do 5 children, a marriage, a household, a job, a weekend job selling jewelry so there'll be a little extra money, or so you can work with your 2 oldest kids and they can pop up this little jewelry shop at conferences or at farmers markets and put themselves through school, and then buy a gallery and then a frame shop. How do you do all those things? Well, you don't sleep very much, and you add in that hour or so of prayer. But her prayers included all of you, and they didn't quite have a design that is easy to describe. It started with family and those closest and siblings, and then extended family, the family members who had died, and their families, and then it had friends and so forth. And then it was geographic. It was Italy and Grass Valley and Pensacola and Key West and Corpus Christi during those Navy years, and then back in Sacramento. And it had the geographies of the Capitol and the Gallery. And then it had special populations. It had those of you who are widows. It was such a connection that she had with you. Those of you and many others who may not have had great relationships with your parents, and she became a kind of substitute or part of that, easing that. And so there were those circles. And those who were bereft by tragedy or marred by war, and those were a special population she prayed for. She prayed for all of you, and it was really extraordinary. It was like this little historical geographical drone that just flew around and hovered over people and gave her then your face and a memory. She loved a passage at the end of the movie Meet Joe Black, and we'll paraphrase this. The main character knows he's about to die, and it coincides with a birthday party for him, and he's a king of media, and he says, "What a glorious day! Every face is a memory. We're all together, and you're mine for a day. I'm going to break precedent and tell you my one candle wish, that you would have a life as lucky as mine, where you can wake up one morning and say, I don't want anything more. 73 years. Don't they go by in a blink?" And around the time Giovanna got her diagnosis, in case I can't do this, Ronan was just 2, her grandson, our grandson, and she'd walk him out the car, and his mom or his dad would roll down the window, and she would say, "Buonanotte, bello," and he would call back, "Buonanotte, nonna." And as the car would go down the street, you could hear him, "Buonanotte, nonna, buonanotte, nonna." So out of the mouths of babes, all of us, "Buonanotte, nonna, buonanotte, Giovanna, buonanotte, Joanne. Buonanotte, nonna." Thank you all.